blind brutality is not going to help. So I want a group of people who are going to use truth and compassion to make policies that are going to work for us. And the Democratic Party is the party most interested in doing that. You may be wondering, what does this have to do with women's history? Is this even a women's issue? Isn't everyone's issue?
That's awesome. I started recording, by the way, because that was awesome. Wow.
And you're younger than I am. That's the kind of thing you're going to have to deal with more than I will. So, good luck to all of us in this. But of course, we'll need more than luck. But you'd asked about the Lancaster County Democratic Party too, and it seems so separate from a global issue like climate change. But of course, it's not. I think there are a lot of people there who are really invested in climate issues, environmental issues, conservation. Just yesterday, I went to the Lindsay Pettis Greenway, and I saw our party chair, Keith, and Alan, who's been so active with us. Alan is there with his grocery bags, picking up trash, as he and Keith do every day on the Greenway. It's a great thing. But we've seen the effects of climate change here. Even, it's flooding a little bit more than we like. Sometimes that Greenway is a little bit harder to use than we like. That wasn't initially the reason I got involved in the County Democratic Party. It was like it was for so many of us, the 2016 election, that terrible 2016 election. I wish I could say it was shocking. It wasn't. And after that, a friend invited me to the Women's March. At first I thought, I'm not going to do that. That just sounds silly. What's that going to accomplish? And it was astonishing. It was amazing. And we were there with a group of 9 women, and all kinds of people were there. Our group was only women, but there were a lot of men there too. I was there with a flight attendant, the head of pediatrics at a hospital we've all heard of, housewife, professor, nurse, teacher, really varied group. And it was enlightening to see how many people there felt so strongly about things that we often keep to ourselves in communities like this one and communities all over the country. Well, we don't always keep them to ourselves on social media, but that's a different story.
That's amazing. So can you tell me some more about the work you've done as a member of the Lancaster County Democratic Party?
What I most enjoy doing with the party, and I wish I had a chance to do more of it, I guess there will be a chance to do more of it, is to figure out how these issues of national policy and how candidates' goals mesh with the everyday needs of the people who live around here. And it's a little bit tricky, right? Especially during a pandemic, but the best thing to do really is to go around and talk to people. And it's something that not everybody enjoys doing it. I love doing it. I love talking to strangers. I like talking with strangers, particularly hearing what they have to say. It's not necessarily what you'd think. So politicians on the national level might be thinking about things like, a border wall or trans issues. But if you go around and talk to somebody in Lancaster, what they care about is their water bill, right? And saying, who can I talk to about my water bill? And you can launch into some really complicated explanation, but they just care about whether they can afford to keep their stuff going. And it's not always apparent to them that this comes down to the way that the state or the municipality wasn't able to or was not willing to generations ago prepare for problems, and the federal government had to step in and come to some sort of rather painful solution decades later. That's just not what they're concerned of. But I really enjoy trying to help a candidate figure out how to bridge that gap between the past and the present, and between these national issues that we see on the news and the issues people care about. And in some cases, that candidate's not necessarily being aware that people in Lancaster feel a particular way. So it's always a challenge. It's always a mystery. It's really hard to tell what's going to motivate somebody to vote. And I think it's that endless puzzle of it that really appeals to me, that connection of different things that you'd never guess were connected.
Wow. So on the note of our elected officials and making that connection, I know that you often contact our elected officials to advocate for better legislation and to advocate for those local issues that really matter to people. Can you tell me about some of those instances?
Well, I talked to them, our state house reps and our state senate rep, and you never really know when you're having an impact. But something that I was glad to see is that the state house version of a bill that would have really micromanaged South Carolina's colleges and universities in some pretty unfortunate ways seems to have died on the vine. So it's not like a representative necessarily is going to reach out to constituents who contacted them and say, hey, if it hadn't been for that thing you said on Facebook, the world totally would have fallen apart. But obviously they are influenced by the things we say. And what I really, really enjoy alerting people to something that they might not have known about, some obscure bill passing through yet another subcommittee hearing in the State House, and getting them to contact a state senator or a state representative. That's deeply satisfying. And we know that if enough people do it, it works. That's the thing. If you're just a voice crying in the wilderness, no, nobody's going to do anything. But if you can corral enough people into knowing about something, caring about something, letting people know, hey, here's the phone number you need to call. Here's an email address you can use. Here's a web link. Here's a sample script you can use. Customize it, make it your own, make it so that you're really feeling it, and make it so that it's addressing something you know about and you care about deeply. If you do that enough, it does make a difference. Now, are we facing challenges with that? You know, did we do well in the last round of elections locally? No. But over time, change is possible. We're seeing it happen on a national level. We're seeing it happen in nearby areas. There's hope for here too.
And that's what I'm really getting from you, is just a lot of hope that if we work together, we really can accomplish things.
Yeah, well, partly what gives me hope is that people like you, there's a younger generation that's been awakened over the past several years, partly by Trump, partly by the murder of George Floyd, by all kinds of different things. And it's really good to see a party being reinvigorated. You know, and a lot of times, much of the work may be done by older people who are retired and aren't working a 40, 50, 60-hour work week like a lot of millennials, Gen X, and Gen Z too. But the younger people obviously are going to be the future of the party. And that is partly what makes me hopeful that y'all are active in so many ways we never would have imagined.
Wow. And speaking of the younger people, you teach at USCL. Can you tell me more about that?
Well, it's a wonderful job. It's been really different this year. I don't think this semester I've seen a single student's face, but the really important thing is that I get to hear their voices. I get to hear what they say. And it's fascinating to see, even just in 10 years, the student body has changed a lot. Their cultural outlooks, the things they're concerned with, a lot of them are deeply, deeply worried about climate change. And that's fortunately pretty independent, I'd say, of party affiliation. They know it's going to affect them more than it will affect their parents. They know it will affect their parents more than it will affect their grandparents. They know they have a stake in it. And I'm glad that they're going to be pushing their politicians to press for changes to our what we're doing with carbon. And they may not put it like that yet, but I know it's going to affect their votes one way or another. But there's another thing that's become pretty obvious to anybody teaching, and I'm sure you've seen this too, though in different ways, and that's that this is an incredibly anxious generation. And it's not because they're spoiled or snowflakes or something like that, almost never. They're anxious because they have a lot to be anxious about. We haven't fulfilled our responsibilities to them yet, and they're becoming increasingly aware of that. So I can't wait to see them turn it into action, especially once they're released from their COVID prisons, as I hope we all will be in a few months. And I'm glad. I think that I'm going to see their political engagement continue. And it's not something I see them doing directly in my classroom. Of course, we're often talking about a 16th century poem or something like that. But when they have free choice to write about whatever they want, it comes up then. that they're feeling a sense of their embeddedness in a political structure in a way that their equivalents 20 years ago did not really. They didn't realize what the stakes were. Now, I think more and more of us can't help but know we've been forced to realize.
Wow. Wow. Our community is really lucky to have you.
Well, I'm really lucky to have this community. I'll say Lancaster has been really, really welcoming. And I do regret to some extent, like a little bit of the partisan frenzy. I think that's made things a little bit tougher for everybody here. And it's not like it is in North Carolina, but we do risk going that way. And I'm glad that there is still a core of this community, people who see each other as people first, and on the opposite side, only second, if at all.
Wow. So this is a little unrelated, but what brought you to Lancaster?
Teaching and my husband. He got the job first at USCL. I was still writing my dissertation. And he said, well, do you want to move to Lancaster? And I said, let's, because I knew it was going to be a great job for him. People had already been very welcoming to him, even before I was here and had a chance to see it in person. And shortly after that, the bottom fell out of the economy. The then governor, Republican Mark Sanford, said that he wanted to close colleges and universities, including USCL. He didn't. He came to campus on an apology tour instead, and he said, oh, I didn't know you had a nursing program. And we said, yes, we do. So do some of the other places you'd like to close down. It never came up again. Things have been better since then, but it really is telling how willing people can be to divest in the public sector, even if it hurts all of us. I think, fortunately, we've seen a retreat away from that position. The Tea Party madness has simmered down a little bit. I think people have started to understand that government can actually help you. But we'll have to keep an eye out for that, because South Carolina has had a problem with disinvesting in education. We know what's happening with that on the K-12 level. Teachers just don't want to come back to the classroom. And college teachers do usually want to come back to the classroom. You know, we're treated generally by our employers, including at USCL, with a great deal of respect for the work we put in and for the dedication we have. So we're coming back, but we need to make sure that there are enough schools for everybody to come back to, too. That K-12 teachers have jobs good enough that they want to return, and that we're not cutting investment in higher education along the way. We need it more than ever.
Absolutely. What advice would you give a woman in Lancaster County who wants to get into the community and make a positive difference?
Oh, well, first I would tell her that there's a lot of room for her to do that. And not just women, but men too, of course. And I'm going to give a recommendation that's going to sound old fashioned. Subscribe to the newspaper, the Lancaster News. You can subscribe to it online. You can get it mailed to you. But if you read the Lancaster News or any one of the area newspapers nearby, you will see volunteer opportunities in every issue. I was about to say in every episode, because that's how exciting it gets, right? It's like episode. But I'd say there are environmental groups, there are health-related groups, there are educational groups, there are groups dealing with helping older people at tax time. There's United Way. I've never been anywhere where people were so invested in helping each other. So I really hope that people do take advantage of that opportunity. Find out. It's not just on the internet, it's in the newspaper too. That's maybe the best way to find it. And you'll meet lovely people. I have, and the Lancaster County Democratic Party and other organizations too. People I never would have met otherwise. So it's by helping others, you help yourself, right? These things that we've been told so many times, they're true.
That's such good advice. Thank you for sharing. You're so invested in our community, and I can tell you're really making a difference, not just for your students, but for everyone in our area.
Well, thanks a lot, Katie. I don't know that I'd really go that far, but I try, right? And if somebody sees me trying and says, well, she really screwed that up, but I know I could do it better, then hey, that's a contribution, right?
Well, and as I tell my students, mistakes make us smarter.
Boy, I hope so.
They're important.
I'll be pretty smart by now.
Learning. So it's the process that counts. It's the process that gets us smarter and makes us better people. So
I think you're right.
All of this. Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, just that it's been good seeing you. It's been a really long year of COVID, and thanks for your interest in this. Oh, and more power to you. You've done so much.
Thank you, and thank you for being willing to do this.
Well, I'm just hoping you really edit it.
Well, it's not me, it's Ira. I don't know how to edit it.
Okay, we'll find out. We'll find out.
Yeah, he did our town halls and a lot of other of our YouTube videos. So
yeah, I thought they were great. Okay. Well, thanks, Katie, and best of luck teaching.
Thank you, and you too. Have a great weekend.
Talk to you later. Bye.